feet, he besought him to come to his house, for he had an only daughter about 12 years of age, and she was dying. As he went, the people pressed round him, and a woman who had a flow of blood for 12 years and had spent all her living on physicians and could not be healed by anyone, came up behind him and touched the fringe of his garment. And immediately her flow of blood ceased. And Jesus said, "Who was it that touched me?" When all denied it, Peter said, "Master, the multitudes around you and press upon you." But Jesus said, "Someone touched me, for I perceive that power has gone forth from me." And when the woman saw that she was not hidden, she came trembling and falling down before him, declared in the presence of all the people why she had touched him, and how she had immediately been healed. And he said to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace." And while he was still speaking, a man from the ruler's house came and said, "Your daughter is dead. Do not trouble the teacher anymore." But Jesus, on hearing this, answered him, "Do not fear, only believe, and she will be healed." And when he came to the house, he permitted no one to enter with him, except Peter and John and James, and the father and the mother of the child. And all were weeping and bewailing her. But he said, "Do not weep, for she is not dead, but sleeping." And they laughed at him, knowing that she was dead. But taking her by the hand, he called, saying, "Child, arise." And the spirit returned, and she got up at once. And he directed that something should be given to her to eat. And her parents were amazed, but he charged them to tell no one what had happened.
Glory to you, Lord. Glory to you.
Good morning, everyone. Has anyone ever touched you and not known who touched you, but you kind of knew? Today, Jesus tells us a very powerful thing about somebody touching him while he was in the midst of a crowd. And I was thinking about touching. I was thinking about 3 weeks ago when the funeral dirge was, when the widow of Nain came to bury her son. And she met up with Jesus, and their worlds collided, one going to death, and Christ always touching people, asking them to respect and take on life. Yet last week we were talking about the Gadarene, the man who was enslaved with chains in the cemetery, groveling, and Jesus coming up to him and touching him and telling every evil thing that's in him, the legions, to get out, and threw him into the pigs, and they fell off the cliff, and he healed that man. And today we come once again to an incredible visual for me, is when there's this great crowd and people are walking around Jesus, and there's this woman walking behind him. And she had a mission. And she was convinced. And her attitude was unstoppable. Even though she was in the crowds and she probably had to fight through the people. I don't know if you've ever been in the crowds, but I've been in probably the most horrendous crowd I've been in when we were in Venice the first year, New Year's Eve. We're in the San Marcos Plaza there. Thousands of people were there. And after the festivities for New Year's celebration finished, I took my daughter to the hotel room, and I cannot tell you how, as I was being moved by people, being squeezed, and I don't know if you've been to Venice, the streets are about this wide, and there were 50 people in just this small area, and they were squeezing me. My daughter Maria was 10 or 12 or 13, I'm not sure, and I was getting scared for her safety, and then I was getting scared for my safety, like pushing and moving, and so I put her on my neck, and I kind of helped her, because she was getting scared. I put her on my neck, and we slowly got to our hotel room. But that was an amazing experience for me that I thought of today, is how the people were pressing against and moving against and going towards Christ, following him. But she had an attitude. And I don't know what kind of attitude you came to church today. I don't know if you came with an attitude to touch Jesus, or just you came because that's what you do. Some of you come once a month, once a week, once a year. I don't know if you came up this morning and you got out of bed. But today, I want to meet Jesus. I want to touch Jesus. And some of you that prepare yourself are going to touch him in the most mysterious, powerful way, receiving his body and blood. The most powerful way that you are also going to walk through the crowds. Not the crowd of the people here, the crowd of your thoughts. Those are the ones that are keeping you from Christ. Those thoughts are the ones that are debilitating you. Those are the thoughts that swarm around in your mind like mosquitoes flying here and there, trying to keep you away from Christ. And today you're asked, come, touch me. Jesus went and touched the widow's son. Jesus touched the man last week, the Gadarene. But today is a woman that's going to go touch Jesus. And she dared not to go in front of him, on the side of him. She was working herself back to just touch the back of his hand, in back of him. And she touched him, and Christ is so connected and knows everything that he knew that this woman's heart was open. And when our hearts are open, energy goes back and forth from the grace of God to all of us, and to that woman in particular today. Let me tell you what attitude someone said. Attitude is more important than facts. It's more important than the past and education, than money, than circumstances, than failures, than successes, than what other people think or say or do. It is more important than appearance, giftedness, or skill. It will make or break a company, a church, a home. The remarkable thing is that we have a choice every day regarding the attitude we embrace for this particular day. Today the Lord is asking you to have an attitude of wanting so badly to touch him, to move through the crowds of your mind, to move through the crowds and noise of the world, saying, don't even bother. Just be a morally good person. If we want to be morally and good people, we don't need to come to church. If we want to accept Jesus just to be good and love Jesus, we can do that anywhere. We don't need to come to church. But if we want to be holy, if we want to be whole, if we want to be who God created us to be, we need to be here every Sunday, every time there's a possibility to touch Christ so we can be united with him, to be healed. Let me tell you what this woman probably was going through. And this is a letter that somebody wrote me from the Give Back group. I'm wondering if this is what this lady 2,000 years ago felt. She goes, I lived for more than a handful of years. Many of them spent with depression and anxiety as unwelcome yet close companions. I've been suicidal more than I can care to remember and felt overwhelmingly worthless to many times to count. My good days were those that I didn't think about dying. Anxiety has held me back in my career and relationships, and coupled with its partner depression has convinced me to be isolated. This is how the devil works. The devil will get you to be isolated. Trust me. Divide and conquer. I've served the altar of fear for most of my life. Given its reality, I have always thought that healing would be a wonderful thing. I've longed for God to wave a wand and make me happy, make me not miserable. I've treated God like a waiter, demanding him to bring me what I want and when I need it, and to do it now. And along the way, I've wondered why I continue to wallow. Over the past couple of years, I've been part of the Give Back group and have found myself in the company of good people who struggle with various addictions and other challenges, but who share in many of the same underlying challenges of despair and loneliness. I've begun to open up a bit, to practice trusting people with small bits of myself. What a gift this group has been, full of love, support, and goodwill. They have helped loosen some of the chains I had wrapped around my heart. And now, like Lazarus, I find myself called out of the tomb into the freedom of life in Christ in a way I've not experienced before, with peace. In the past 6 months, for reasons that are still not known to me, God has begun to restore my spirit to a new life. My depression and anxiety I knew so well, so often crippling companions, have faded in their intensity. Over the summer, I realized that I was struggling much less than I had in the past, and yet I find myself hesitating at the edge of the darkness. I found that even as the darkness is dissipating in the light, I am afraid to fully step out of the shadows. Healing is not easy. In fact, for me, it's somewhat scary. How can this be, since I fully believe that the easing up of my anxiety and depression has come from God? You see, I know depression, I know anxiety, I'm good at them, and we have a long, long history together. But they continue to try and drag me down. They are known, but they are not of God. I do not know how to live in freedom and peace at the moment. I do not know how to let the fear go at the moment and live as God's safe and beloved child. But I'm walking and I desire this. So today I must again choose life. I must again choose to accept Christ and His healing. He is freely offering it, but I have to step out in faith to receive it. I must live in the here and now, in this moment that He has given, not in the past, nor not in the future. I am on the journey, and I'm learning to practice how to live in faith and love in God's gracious peace. What a great gift. I'm wondering if that woman could have just traded places with this woman in 2012. Perhaps trade with you. I don't know what your issue of blood is. We all have issues of some kind of blood. And so many times I ask all of you to come to confession. I'm not doing it because I want to hear your sins. I want to do it because I know who you are. You're God's creation. And the Lord doesn't want to. He's not interested in your sin. He's interested in you being glorified in His name. You being edified in His grace. And many of you decide not to come to confession. It's not for me. It's for you. It's the invitation of the church. It's your attitude. It's your attitude that I want to touch Jesus. I want to be open with His love and His grace. This woman is teaching us so many things that we look at, many of you think, I don't have an issue of blood. I don't have releases. I'm not a murderer. I'm not a killer. I've not done really bad things. No, you need to come in front of Christ to reconnect the relationship in any way that you need to do for Him to heal you so you can be touched and He can touch you. So as you come up for Holy Communion today, those who prepare, I want you to think about the attitude you came to church here. If you had any other attitude except wanting to touch Jesus, I want you to change that now. However you can do that in your mental, beautiful mind. If you have any worry or care of the world, I want you to throw that away now and not to care about it now. You can care about it when you leave the door. But now you're asked to set aside all worldly care. And as you think about this, and as you redirect your attitude, when you say, I believe and confess, Lord, that you are truly the Christ, the Son of the living God, who came to the world to save sinners, of whom I am the chief. Let's not play around. So let's not come up and last days ago. Let's come up with some awesomeness, thinking that we're coming in this mysterious way to receive Christ, that you are going to touch Him and He's going to touch you. It's not about being good. It's not being about moral. We don't need to come to church. Close the doors down. That's what's happening in this world. This world of morality and being good at some level. We're talking about another thing. We're talking about being holy. We're talking about being whole. We're talking about being fully alive, fully clothed in your right mind, standing at the feet of Jesus. And to do that, we need to clean our souls. And we need to have an attitude that we want to move towards Jesus Christ so we can touch Him. And when He touches Him, what happens? He says, who touched me? And I want Him to say, George, I think you touched me. Martha, where you been? You touched me. Aleka, Presidenta, Alice, you touched me. And then when He calls you out, you don't have to be embarrassed. Oh my gosh, He saw me. This lady was embarrassed. Oh my gosh, he knew that I touched. I don't want Him to know. I want all of us to know that we want to touch Jesus as a community and holy apostles so we can be healed. So we don't have to be worried about all these thoughts that consume us, the depression, the anxieties, the addictions, you name it. This is not our calling. Our calling is to be fully alive. So anything that's happened in your past that's not been revealed cannot be healed. So the Lord is saying, reveal the stuff that's holding you back. Reveal the stuff that you're afraid of. Reveal the stuff that's holding you down in depression. Reveal the stuff that anxiety is killing you. Reveal the stuff of how you're judging one another and yourself to the most. And let's get on with business. right, Paul? Business of life. So when we come up, and we're not thinking about when the liturgy is going to be over, that when we come up, we're coming with our hearts fully aware that we want to be present with Christ. We can touch Him, and He can call us out and say, I love you. So my prayer is this week, this day, this moment, right now, that whatever attitude you came here, you throw it away if it's not an attitude if you wanted to touch Jesus Christ. You throw it away, and you ask yourself, how will I continue to move forward to touch Christ so He can touch me and I can be healed? I don't know what you want in life. If you want anything else besides being healing, you've been duped in the world. Because one day, even this lady that was healed is going to die. Even the guy who was healed from death 3 weeks ago, the widow's son, he's going to die. At the end of the day, the more we live in Christ, the more we will die to ourselves and be resurrected in His life. This is the calling. And the world out there is going to say, you guys are crazy. This is a waste of your time. Let me tell you what's important, is knowledge and science. And the church is going to say, that's beautiful. But we will meet God where He breathes Spirit into you and me in the heart. And as holy apostles that committed here, I pray we can do our best to have an attitude. That you pray for me that I have an attitude that all we want to do is touch Jesus. And when we touch with Jesus, I don't care if there's a hurricane, there's a tsunami, there's World War III, you will have that peace. Like Father Mel said, peace, don't be fooled. Peace is not when we put our weapons down. Peace is not when we're throwing bombs, not stop throwing bombs at each other. He said the opposite of peace is not war. The opposite of peace is fear. So we can find a way to push away fear that drives everyone here. And trust me, I know. I bet you we have 10 hours. Everyone tells me what their most anxious, provoking moment is, what they're worried about today. And what fear is generating and moving them. And the Lord wants to say, I want to touch that, and I want to transfigure that into hope. I want to transfigure that into not worrying about that, and just doing your best to show up, fully clothed in your right mind, standing at my feet. This is what Jesus wants from you and me. And if you guys are running, and I know who's running here, because I can see eyes. If you can run from me, it's pretty bad, but don't run from Christ. Don't ever run from Christ. Because He's going to guide you to love, and He's going to guide you to transfiguration. He's going to try to guide you to wholeness, so you can have a life fully of Christ.